In quilting, we make blocks out of squares and rectangles, but we're not the only craft that does so. Today's guest, Chris Hanson of Modern American Vintage, uses blocks of wood to create similar patterns, and then he incorporates them into sewing tools. And he's going to tell us all about it. So grab your sewing and a cup of tea, and here's my interview with Chris Hanson. Well, thank you, Chris, for being on the show today. Tell me, where in the world are you coming to us from?
We are coming from Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Are you originally from Tennessee?
No, originally we were from Northern Illinois, and then we did a little stint out in Las Vegas for about 3 years. My family and then my folks followed my sister out there. She was a florist for about 7 years out there for one of the big casinos. You know, us Midwesterners, we realized we really missed the color green, so but we didn't want to go back to Illinois and brave the winters again. So I was like, let's just stay on this latitude and just head straight east.
So have you always been a crafter?
Oh yeah, ever since I could pick up a crayon, I've been drawing and, making stuff out of Play-Doh and whatever. I just love to try different mediums, and if something sticks, great. If something doesn't, no big deal, just move on to the next thing. But always been really into painting and drawing. I paid a lot of my bills in college by recreating Van Goghs and stuff like that. My grandpa was a hobbyist woodworker. He had a big old shop. He never really got into anything other than, just making fun things, birdhouses with me when I was a kid. Figured let's just pick that up again and see what happens. And it's shocking where it's come since then. I can't believe where we're at. We actually just passed 25,000 followers on Instagram just a few months ago. So never in a million years would I think that I'd be doing this for a living. It's really something.
So you do this amazing woodworking with colored wood. You don't stain it, do you? You just...
Nothing. No stains, paints, or dyes using any of the wood that I use. Everything is completely natural, completely naturally figured. It's unbelievable what you can find in nature. You can actually create the entire color wheel naturally out of hardwoods, like
Wow.
all primary and secondary colors. It's really crazy. Like pink ivory and blue buckeye burl. I don't know if you can see these here.
Yeah.
These are some pin blocks that I made with Susie Quilts. This is her holiday party pattern, but this one's made out of an African wood called pink ivory, and then this is a California wood called buckeye burl. It's 100% natural stuff. It's really something.
So from just being a casual woodworker to making these incredible colored quilting accessories, what is the line? How did you get from there to there?
Well, okay, so it all started with COVID, actually. I was actually an animator. I was working on slot machine games in Vegas at the time. That's what I got my degree in, is visual effects and animation. But we were furloughed for a couple months right there at the beginning, and I didn't really have any other way of making money to support my family. I got a wife and 2 kids. My mom, she was working at a quilt store at the time, out in Las Vegas, and I had just cobbled together a couple little, small tools from Facebook Marketplace and garage sales and stuff in the garage, because like I said, my grandpa and I would make birdhouses when I was a kid, and I wanted to give that same experience to my son. My mom, she came back to me one day, said, "Hey, my bosses want you to see if you could make some point turners out of some wood and sell them on their D-Stash videos that they did every week." And we ended up selling out like within a few minutes. It was really something. I only made like 25 or 30, but it was really exciting to see that there was, an actual kind of need for it, but there was a niche there that could be filled. It's just snowballed from there. I'll have my mom, she's the quilter, so I'll give her some little prototype notion, and she'll say if it works, awesome. If it doesn't work, then we'll just scrap the idea altogether. But yeah, we've got quite a few different things on our little smorgasbord of offerings.
So you went through some testing trying to figure out different shapes and different sizes, I guess, of the different tools that you offer?
Yeah, I wanted to make something pretty ergonomic that was comfortable to hold and to use. We've got these Hera markers.
Mm-hmm.
It's made with a flame box elder handle and curly maple blade. And I wanted to make something that was, comfortable to fit in the user's hand. So that worked out really well. And yeah, seam rippers. My mom, she likes, to have a little bit of a longer handle to really kind of get into little areas there rather than that little tiny plastic piece that you see most of the time. So yeah, a little bit more substantial. Same thing with finger pressers. I wanted something that really kind of fits into the palm of your hand, that you could really torque down on those creases and fold those nice and flat. And there's a whole bunch of different sizes. It's just kind of whatever the user thinks is going to fit best in their hand, what looks nicest in their sewing studio, and all that stuff.
So what turns out to be your best-selling product?
Clappers, for sure. We go through a lot of clappers. I actually weight these. They're much heavier than pretty much any other clapper on the market right now. These all come in at about maybe a pound and a half, somewhere around there. But still, they're small enough to where you can kind of put them in whatever space you have. But we do with those single wood combos. I make quilt blocks on them sometimes. We've done some different patterns like this plaid here, which is a lot of fun. I love making those plaid patterns. And I started getting into recreating some quilters patterns that they make. So I'm teaming up with them. I made an owl not too long ago, just a few months ago. One of my favorites was these cat clappers from
Oh,
So
wow.
And then the one that is up right now is Erica Arndt's Happy Harvest pumpkins. But I've got these in a bunch of different colors. So, if it's not fall, you could say they're apples, possibly. I got green and yellow and red. And then in that same vein, I also make charm square clappers. So if you wanted to press an entire, 5.5-inch block, you could get one of these here with a little handle on there. You could press the whole thing all at once. So these are a lot of fun to make. I have a blast with these. So typically those are about 5 inches square, but I do make them a little bit bigger if you wanted to, do something a little bit bigger. These ones, the handle screws off, so it's easy to travel with if you need to.
I think those big ones are a good idea. I mean, doing seam by seam is quite time consuming with a
Yeah,
clapper. So to be able to press a whole block and just let it sit there under the clapper for a little while.
it's all about efficiency.
It's interesting because the clapper only got on my radar in all the years that I've sewn, really just at the beginning of COVID. Somebody had it, and then I
Yeah.
thought, oh, maybe I'll have one of those. Did you know about the clapper before you started making them?
Not really. That's one of the things that my mom, she found out about right about, COVID time, and she suggested I try and make them. So I made one. It was really simple. It was just a walnut base with a quilted maple top, and I didn't weight it or anything like that. She liked it, but it was her idea to weight them down. So we started adding the weights to it, and it's kind of like a big selling point when you go to these different shows. That's one of the things that we show to people to invite them into the booth, and I think that really just kind of piques their interest.
So for the people that don't know, could you explain what a clapper does?
After you iron your seam with your iron, you press this down so the raw wood on the bottom just set it down on your seam, and the wood will absorb the heat and the moisture from the iron, and it basically like sets the fibers in the fabric and really sets that seam nice and flat. You can kind of do the same thing with these seam rollers. I got seam rollers here. So if you don't want to keep getting up and down from your sewing machine to go to your ironing board, you can just quickly, roll that seam nice and flat, and these work in a pinch. Same thing with your finger pressers, but the clapper is just, I think it's a really great way to showcase the natural beauty of the wood itself. I don't want to chop this down into any smaller bits than it is right now because it's such a bold pattern, and I love seeing it. Other woods that have great color, but there's not really any figure, you can do, interesting things like this. But
Did you have to experiment with woods to find out what was the best clapper, or did you know when you started?
the as far as the bases go, it's pretty much you just need a good hardwood. Like pine is not necessarily going to cut it. It's going to do what you need it to do to an extent, but a lot of people say that, a harder wood is going to be better. Just something that's going to absorb that heat and that moisture more efficiently, I guess. I'm not exactly sure of the science behind it, but primarily I use a lot of oak, maple, and walnut. I've used sycamore in the past, which works pretty well too, but those are pretty much the three main woods that I use.
So did you give your mom a test, like she had to figure out which one was the best?
Mhm. Yep, and she keeps all the prototypes, so she's got quite a little collection.
So when you use a clapper, are you suggesting that they use it with just a regular ironing board or a wool mat?
Wool mats are really, really good to use. You could use it just on a regular ironing board, that's fine. The wool mat is going to be really good to kind of just really kind of press the fabric up into the clapper. I've heard that works really well. Michelle from Olaso Irons, she swears by those mats. But yeah, you could definitely use it on your ironing board, no problem. It's a
So
lot.
have you tried something that didn't work?
I don't think so yet. Uh,
Good.
we just tried different iterations of certain things. Like when I was first starting with the point turners, I had some different shapes that I was trying to make more. I like the idea of having like a little dip down area by the handle is like a kind of a trigger to kind of give more stability and holding, but that just didn't work out. It looked kind of cool, but it was just way easier and it was just nicer to have just something pretty straight and kind of organically flowing look. So really, it's just some iterations that just didn't work out. Yeah, so far, so far so good. We haven't had any issues.
If I understand correctly, what you're doing is you're forming those patterns in a long piece and then you're cutting into slivers, right?
Well, the plaid, stuff like this,
Yeah.
kind of similar to how you would see a end grain cutting board be made. I don't do it exactly the way that they do it because the end grain, it doesn't allow for that bright burst of color that face grain offers. So it's a little bit more time consuming. Like there are more cuts and glue up phases involved, but you get a much nicer product, I think, from that. But basically, yeah, what you're thinking of is pretty much the way it goes, just slight differences.
A lot of people don't realize that there's a real way that you have to cut wood, as you mentioned end grain.
Mhm.
And do you call it side grain?
Face grain.
Face grain.
Yeah, there's a side grain. It's just the way the way that the tree gets milled. If it's cut
Face
one way,
grain.
it's side grain. If it gets cut the other way, it's face grain. So it's all just comes down to the milling process of the log itself.
So is the face grain, does it go with the growth of the tree and cross grain
Mhm.
is a cross section of the tree?
The end grain is the cross section of the tree.
Is your shop kind of like our quilting rooms where you just constantly have scraps of wood and you're constantly acquiring new wood and it's something that needs to be organized and managed?
Horribly organized. Yes, it is awful in my shop right now. Just in all, complete disclosure, just getting ready for the Christmas season and then the festival show a couple months ago. I am constantly getting my high knees in, just stepping over stuff everywhere.
I just want to circle back on your woodworking techniques, the colors and the various woods that you use. Was that the type of woodworking that you did with your grandfather, or was that something that you pulled out as you started working with it?
My grandpa and I didn't really do anything other than with pine, different pine woods. He had some maple and oak here and there. We would repurpose old siding, or crown molding, stuff like that. I still have one of the first birdhouses we made. It was just a little dowel rod log cabin. I think it was like some batten board siding for a roof or something. I can't remember exactly what it was, but yeah, I can't believe I still have that. That thing's probably 33 years old now. When we made that, I think I was like four or five.
Wow, that is young.
Yeah. But we had a blast. He had basically everything that you could want in a little hobbyist shop. And one of my favorite things to do when we would go over there is just go turn on the machines for a couple seconds and just hear the noise of the shop itself. And it was just a lot of fun to be in there with him.
I like the smell of sawdust.
Yes, yes. If you get the right wood, that's the big thing. Some of these woods smell just terrible. There's a couple woods that I will never use again. I can't remember what the wood was, but I swear it smelled like an open sewer. It was terrible. So never again. But most of the stuff, yeah, it smells pretty great. There's a wood called snake wood, smells like cinnamon when you work with it.
Oh,
It's
nice.
awesome.
So, how did you get into these exotic woods? Because I know they cost a fortune.
Some of them do. You just got to know where to go. Some like online brokers, they have a lot of really great species of wood. Like I spent the last 3 or 4 years just establishing really good relationships with wood importers. They help you get around the middleman. Those big wood brokers. If there's a person that is really kind of focused on one particular thing, they'll have much better prices than some of these big websites that you can go. Some things you just kind of have to bite the bullet and you know get what you can get when it comes available. I've got a couple different people that have, or one person that is really good at getting just gorgeous Buckeye burrow, that blue wood. They're straight out of California. I've got a guy in Pennsylvania that helps me out with a lot of like a Moroccan wood called thuya burl, which that's another one that smells fantastic when it's being worked. A couple guys from Virginia that help with like pink ivory. They're just all over the country. It's really something.
A lot of people may not know that wood is actually a really regulated import.
Yes, you got to keep all your records. Everything needs to be within the site's regulations. Yeah, it's very, very, very regulated. And then the harvesting techniques, obviously, it's very regulated overseas. Some of the rare woods that you can get, they're either harvested from deadfall, if they were blown over in storms, and you can't just let them, rot into the ground when there could be, a good amount of money made for those logs. And so yeah, it's definitely not like some people might think we're, destroying the rainforest to make these quilting tools.
Yeah. Do you have to worry about like disease or bugs or things like that, or is that all treated before it gets to you?
It's actually kiln dried. None of the woods I use are treated with any chemicals or anything like that. Just simple heat, vacuum kilns. So they suck out all the air and pressurize it. They heat the wood to, I can't remember what the temperature is, but it's gonna either kill or drive away any pests that potentially could be in the wood. So yeah, I don't think there's really any worries of little worms kind of digging their way out of your tools. I actually have a couple big slabs coming later this afternoon. To be honest, I don't really know where I'm going to keep them, so I'm going to have to try and take some stuff out of the garage and then slide them in somewhere for the time being, and then put everything back and kind of figure out where everything goes later. But these slabs are going to be amazing. Some of the highest figure woods I've ever seen. I'm really really excited to get them.
So, how heavy will these slabs be?
Full weight's 480 pounds. So each slab is probably going to be around 100, 150 pounds, somewhere around
So,
there.
you must have had a pretty big purchasing curve here as you've geared up with your workshop. I mean, you must have some kind of forklift or something to bring these in, or
No,
just a
it's
moving
just
table. Like, how do you shift them by yourself?
just brute strength on my part. That's it. I'm gonna figure something out. We've got a dolly, and maybe my little tiny wife can help me out here and there too. So
A jack or something?
I need to figure something out because yeah, this is one of those things. I don't know what possessed me to pull the trigger on these things, but we did really well in the Houston show, and I figured if I'm gonna get these slabs, I probably should do it now. We'll
So you're
just
going to cut these down, or you're going to do something totally different, like a slab table or something like that?
do something a little bit different. It is going to be sewing and quilting related. I'm not going to disclose exactly what that is now. It's a secret, but you're the first to know about it. So stay tuned within the next year or so. Maybe we'll be able to launch them. So
So you make these lovely matched kits. You've got a whole page of these. Actually, you've got 4 pages of them on your website. Are these one-ofs, or are you able to sometimes make various numbers within the collection?
I think I have about 8 of them on the each listing altogether of the same woods, like this piece, this kit here. Each one comes with at the minimum, a hair marker, point turner, and seam ripper. But they'll all have just different handles from basically the same board most of the time. So this is elm burl on the bottom.
When you have those sets and you're using all these beautiful woods, some of them very, I'm not going to say unusual, but maybe not that well known.
Mhm.
Are you including maybe a little story about where the wood comes from so people know what it's made out of?
Sometimes, yeah. The like the flame box elder, this wood here, nobody is really quite 100% sure what causes these red streaks. Either they're, like a stress from the tree being, blown in the wind, or if it's a reaction to like little like borer beetles boring into the wood. Nobody's really quite sure. But like burl wood, these little swirly undulations,
Yes.
those typically happen around the like the root burl near the base of the tree. Sometimes you see little masses or growths on the side of the tree, and that's where all the figure comes from. Let's see, yeah, the this black ash burl is one of my favorites to work with. I don't know what causes it to have such these tight eyes and these bark inclusions, but I don't get that very often. But my gosh, it is fun to work with. Yeah, ambrosia maple. That's another one of my favorites. This is really cool. These ambrosia streaks here. This is actually a symbiotic relationship from a type of borer beetle that kind of harvests or grows this fungus that grows into the capillary action of the wood. Don't worry, the fungus has been rendered inert through the kiln drying process, so it's not going to have any effect on anything. So, but it just makes these really amazing streaks.
They look like tiger stripes almost.
Kind of, yeah,
So I
yeah.
see you pouring something over top. What is that? Just a conditioning, like a clear something that's not
Or
epoxy. That's something else.
are you referring to the finish that I use for like those the copper videos that were on my Instagram?
Yeah.
That's just a beeswax and orange oil like furniture polish that you can get
Okay.
from any hardware store. I also make my own polishing compound from beeswax and mineral oil. It's just a little tin that'll last you for years. But yeah, it's just some untinted, unscented furniture polish to keep all the colors looking fresh.
You must be getting new wood and just thinking up new designs all the time.
Yeah, it's hard to shut it off. Those pencils, my gosh, that design is about a year and a half in the making. I had all the woods that I wanted to use for the pencil itself. I just didn't know what I was going to use for the like the metal part. One of my wood trader forums was one day, and this guy had a Puerto Rican wood called Blue Maho, and I was like, oh my gosh, I have to. I don't care what it costs. It's coming home. It's and it worked out perfectly, I thought. So the whole metal part is actually all blue maho. The darker parts are just the end grain, and then the lighter parts are the face grain. So it absorbs the finish differently. So the face grain or the end grain is darker, and the face grain stays much lighter. So you get that 3D effect.
They are just beautiful. And there's a lot of teachers who are quilters.
Exactly right. Yeah.
But look at this one, number 12. You call that the zigzag pattern on top of a maple base.
Those strips are all from just scrap wood. When I different boards through the table saw, I'll be left with these really thin strips of wood that I can't use for much else. So I just ended up gluing them all together one day, and then figuring out what kind of designs can I make with this after the fact. And I've done like these chaos, like they're called chaos patterns. So you just got a whole bunch of like little squares and rectangles. And one day I was like, let's just see what happens when I make a like a chevron or a zigzag pattern. And that's probably one of my favorite things that I've just made on accident, basically.
Like you must have thousands of pieces of all these little scraps.
I got a bunch. Yeah. I got enough to keep me busy for months. I should just start getting to it, I think.
So do you have to change blades and things like that to get the same result, but from a different wood?
Sometimes, like best practices, yes, you would switch blades to something specific for cross cutting. I should start doing that to get better results that would allow for much less sanding. But I don't know. I guess I'm lazy, so I just keep the same saw blade on for the most part and just bite the bullet on that little extra sanding.
Are these styles that you make over and over again, or are they mostly experimental?
A lot of them are experimental. Well, everything is experimental at the right on the outset, and then if it does well, I'll keep going with it. But 4 years into this, and I'm still experimenting and finding new things to try, and I don't expect that to end anytime soon, to be honest.
No, and that's probably where the fun is too.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it makes me so happy.
These are tools that people will have forever and ever.
Yeah, I sure hope so. That's one of the things my mom says they're heirloom quality tools, and I sure hope that it works out that way. I have had quite a few people tell me that they're going to be passing their tools on to their daughters and their granddaughters, and that just makes me happy. I love it.
So I'm looking at you matching up the points here on the chevrons. That must be just as challenging in woodworking as it is in quilting.
But even more so because you have a third dimension that you have to worry about too. Like if my saw blade is off even a 16th or even a 32nd of an inch, if it's not perfectly 90 degrees, and you try to glue those strips up perfectly, it might look like it's aligned on the top, but on the bottom it's going to shift ever so slightly, so you'll be off like a you know 30, even sometimes up to an eighth of an inch if you're not monitoring it constantly. So I've had to get kind of creative with how I glue everything up, and It takes a while because I'll have to sit there with my hand just kind of clamping it together myself for the glue to start to tack up a little bit and hold, and then I can put it in clamps. But yeah, you have to worry about that third dimension when it comes to gluing up these billets of wood. But my gosh, it's so satisfying when it comes out
I
proper.
always say that. You'll never ever, it's always fun when the points line up. Never
Right?
gets old, never gets old. I'm just thinking of you starting from nothing 5 years ago and developing all these different patterns. Like there must have been a couple of, like you weren't an expert to begin with. There must have been a lot of trial and failure.
There was. I like my point turners they were different shapes. They weren't necessarily quite ergonomic. They looked kind of cool, but they didn't quite meet all of the prerequisites that I have now. Certain woods I thought were going to look nice when paired together. That definitely didn't happen all the time. So my mom, she's got a lot of the rejects. She calls it her orphanage. So she takes in the rejects and so I think she's got maybe 15 to 20 different styles that didn't work out properly. But yeah, it's all just trial and error, and you can kind of learn to figure out what the wood is going to look like after you put the finish on, because the colors do come out much more vibrant after you put the finish on, obviously. So to kind of learn to see through the rough sawn face of the wood, you kind of figure out how it's all going to look after the finish goes on.
So are you a one-man show or do you have help behind you?
Pretty much, it's just me in the garage in the workshop. My sister helps me with all of the finish sanding of the hand tools, the 3-piece kits. My mom, she's my travel buddy, my show buddy. And then my wife, she helps me keep all the books, keeps me legal and all that stuff. And then yeah, so it's just me working on all the tools and trying to answer emails as best I can. But yeah, it's just me for 10, 12 hours a day in the workshop.
Do you have any woodworking guilds or anything like that that you can rely on? So if you're
I'm
somebody, a buddy or a mentor that you can call up and ask a question.
I really don't have anybody right now. I know that there's lots of places out there that you can go. I like to just kind of do things trial and error. If it works, great. If it didn't work, I'll just figure out another way to do it. It's one of the few things that I have right now in my life to kind of keep my, sharpen the wit. But I'm sure that there are different places that I could go, like even within the wood trader forums that I'm a part of, just buying wood. If I need to answer or to ask questions, there's going to be plenty of people that I can ask if I need to.
It's one of the upsides of the internet, isn't it? That you
I
can
love it. Yeah, it's great.
be part of forums and there'll be some person on the other side of the country that can answer your question.
Exactly right. It's a really, really good tool. If I didn't have this business going, I probably would be off of social media altogether. But my gosh, it really helps. It really, really helps. Yep.
You went to college for animation. Are you using any of those skills that you learned in college in
Uh,
your work?
Some I have plans to make more reels on Instagram. Right now, I'm just basically using Photoshop to get the photos ready to go for listings and Instagram posts and stuff like that. I work a lot with After Effects, so that's kind of it's not really the video editing program that a lot of the experts use, but I just like it because it's quick and I can easily integrate animations in there if I need to. So there are some things I am bringing along with that degree. I definitely didn't need to get the diploma for it, but
You may be like me, like you think, oh, there's all these things you could do,
yeah,
but you just don't have time for it.
exactly right. Yeah, it's tough to do this and then, play husband and dad at the same time. I mean, you're a business owner. You get the hours that goes into everything that you gotta do.
Well, I even struggle to put pictures on Instagram sometimes. Like life is just moving so fast.
It really
And you're going,
is.
oh, I should have taken a photo there. You go to Houston, you go to QuiltCon, and you
Mhm,
have Christmas. Are there
mhm.
any other shows that you do?
We're still kind of in the process of just discovery, of seeing what shows work, what shows don't work. QuiltCon is going to be a yearly thing. We love that show. We just did festival for the first time in Houston. I think we're going to make that a yearly thing. We're going to be trying the new Road to Virginia show coming up in June, I think.
Do you have to take all your inventory with you, or do you do sales over the internet?
We take everything with us. We just did a U-Haul for the festival show. That was quite a hike. It was about 13-hour drive, something like that. But it was a fun show. We love doing shows. It's a blast.
I haven't been to Houston in a number of years, but QuiltCon, everybody's there to have fun.
Yeah, there's an energy about QuiltCon that's just it's unlike any other show that we've been to. It's a blast. I really highly suggest it if you can make it.
Yeah, yeah. Ever speak at local guilds or?
No, I don't know. I've never sewn anything in my life, so I really wouldn't be the best one to do that. I know my mom, she's the quilter. She was been talking about going and speaking at some guilds around the area. We just kind of have to pull the trigger on that, but maybe in 2025 we should be able to start doing some of that. It'd be a lot of fun.
So if people want to get a hold of you, how do they get a hold of you?
They can go to either my website, modernamericanvintage.com, or you can get a hold of me through my Instagram. Just search Modern American Vintage and you'll see my logo on the black background. I try to, as responsive as I possibly can. Sometimes it takes a little while to get back to you, but again, I'm basically a one-man show, so just have a little grace.
Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I've learned an awful lot, and I hope my viewers will too.
And it was great. I really appreciate you having me on. It's a lot of fun.
I hope you enjoyed my interview with Chris Hanson. I loved how he used all those various woods and made their characters shine. If you are interested in Chris's work, I'll leave a link to his website and Instagram account in the video notes below. Next time you're in your sewing room, be sure to have Karen's Quilt Circle playing in the background. I have interviewed so many amazing, interesting, and talented people on this show. Let one inspire you. Take care, and I'll see you next time.